I'm going to go ahead and get started. Once again, my name is Sean, and I want to thank everybody so much for joining us today. I'm going to go ahead and switch it over to presentation mode, and yeah, here we go. All right, so thank you very much for joining us today for our Blended Learning Read Theory webinar. We're going to be talking about the ins and outs of Read Theory and how you're going to be able to use it effectively in a traditional or online class, or a little bit of both. I want to run down our schedule for today. We're going to do a quick greetings and introduction of what Read Theory even is and who I am. And then I'm going to spend the majority of the time just taking you through the details of Read Theory and how it can be used for blended learning in your classroom or your virtual classroom. And then we'll finish up with a Q&A. Oh, which reminds me, if you will go ahead and put all questions in the Q&A mode instead of the general chat, there should be a way to do that on your end. So if you'll just go ahead and do that, and that way I don't miss any of the questions. I'm going to try not to answer any of the Q&A mode questions as we go along, and I'll try to hit all those as we get to the end so I don't lose my flow and nobody gets confused. All right, as you've had a chance to look at there, my name is Sean Murnion. I am an MAT from Duke University. I have 10 plus years in education at all different levels. I have worked in elementary schools. I have worked in high schools. I have done adult education for adults with special needs. I've done behavioral therapy for children with autism, starting at the age of 2. And so I've really had my hands in all different ability levels and all different ages of education. So hopefully I can speak at least in some way to your particular educational experience. So that's who I am and why I'm here, and hopefully worth listening to. And then let's talk just briefly about what Read Theory is. So Read Theory is, at its heart, a free adaptive reading comprehension program. It grades everything for you. It automatically adapts based on student performance, and it provides data for you to analyze and be able to adapt your in-classroom or online instruction based on that data. And one of the big things here is that it is totally hands-off, which will mean that once you get your kids going, they'll just go. It looks like I'm getting a few complaints about the audio here. There will be a recorded session of this posted on our YouTube channel. And I'll also do my best to slow down because sometimes I get excited and talk fast. All right, so let's go ahead here. Great, so I've gone over the schedule and then I've introed Read Theory. So now I just want to talk briefly about why we're all here. We're all here because we are in unprecedented times. Some of you are going to be teaching in a traditional classroom with a few students online. Some of you are going to be in your classrooms 2 or 3 times a week and the rest online. And some of you will maybe go months before you even see your students in person. This creates some real unique struggles and challenges, and we're aware of them. We know that this is unprecedented, and it's unprecedented in the challenges that it creates for teachers, because we're not just talking about the challenge of delivering instruction. We're talking about the challenge of actually making sure students are kept engaged, the ability to create a community. And so why we're hosting this webinar, and what our emphasis is today, is how Read Theory can be used to not only make sure that we're still holding kids accountable to high educational standards, but making sure that they're staying engaged and helping them generate a sense of community. And so we're with you is our big message, and that's why we're hosting this today. Okay, our learning goals for today, you can't get away from these. Our learning goals for today are 2. Number 1, I want you to be able to utilize Read Theory in an effective way, no matter what your classroom looks like. And the majority of our presentation today is going to focus on that. And then the second thing that I'm going to work on is making sure you feel comfortable working independently. And we'll have time at the end for a Q&A to make sure that any of those little doubts or little questions I'll be able to hopefully address. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Our very first thing that we have to talk about with read theory is knowledge points. These are the fundamental building blocks of read theory. And so I want you to have a real clear sense of why we use them, what they're used for, and that should hopefully help you find a way to use them in your classroom. So the 3 points that I've outlined, the first and most important one is they're used to motivate students. Students love to achieve things. They love games, small objectives, small quests that they can win. And so by allowing students to earn points and progress up through levels in our program, they're going to be able to continually win. And that's one of the ways that we hope we can help with engagement, even in these online times. They let students know that they're making progress. And the last thing is that you don't get points if you're not putting in your best effort. And so it discourages sort of that careless click-through that can happen with online tools. So in order to use these effectively, let's talk about how you earn them. So students get points in 4 ways. Number 1, they answer a question, they get a point. That's it. It's as simple as that. No major math required. Now, throughout our quizzes, we normally have what we call a challenge question. This is normally just a slightly more difficult question. Again, it's going to fall within the learning standards for that grade level, but maybe we thought it was just a little more challenging. A student who completes that question correctly will get 3 points. There's only 1 of those per quiz. This is also a motivation tool. If you get the challenge question correctly, it again helps gamify the learning so that students feel engaged and they have a sense of accomplishment. We will also have bonus points, and this is where the majority of their points will come from, is when you pass a quiz, you get 15 points. Now, our average quiz has about 7 questions. So if you're doing the math and following along, a student can earn maybe 9 points just by answering the questions. But if they pass the quiz, they're going to be able to earn an additional 15. And if they get a perfect score, they get 15 additional points, which means that the fastest way to earn points is actually to go slow on read theory. So, and that is not trademarked or copyrighted. You can actually steal that brilliant line from me to use in your classroom. So your students are going to be able to earn between 0 and 42 points per quiz. I give you this information just so that you can have it in the back of your mind as you're setting goals for your students. In general, most students will earn around 20 points per quiz. So all of that's great. But now let's talk about what you do with these knowledge points. The very first thing that you want to do is you want to talk to your students and set goals for them. This is low tech. You just tell your students what the goal is in whatever way you're communicating with them, be it Edmodo or Google Classroom or face-to-face. You just communicate with them what the expectation is and how many they are supposed to earn and when. And then these are the numbers that you'll want to have just as what we've seen as really effective goals for teachers previously. 50 knowledge points a day means they have to pass 2, maybe 3 quizzes in order to meet their goal. That's a good amount of taking it slow and actually reading per day to ask of a child. And then another goal that we recommend here is 200 points per week. And that would mean your student has to pass somewhere between 8 and 10 quizzes, okay? So let's see, I'm just real quickly looking at the questions here. Oh, great. And I'll address these questions at the end. I see already some great questions in the question and A box. So I will address those, I promise. Okay, so In order to actually manage these goals for your students, I want to show you how you can easily track goals and make grading and accountability really easy for yourself. So I'm going to go ahead and just share my screen with you and take you into what this would look like on your end if, let's say, you set a 50-point goal for the day and you want to see who met it. So, all right, hopefully you can see my screen now. Great. I'm just going to open up the chat here just to make sure. Great. All right. So once you're on your logged into your teacher account, you're going to go to the progress report page, and you'll automatically be taken to your first class. You'll be able to see a bunch of information here about how many knowledge points your students have earned and all of that. If you need to change the class, it's right here. You can see all your different classes. So what I want to draw your attention to right here, first off, is just the knowledge points. It's the very first goal graph that we see. And if I had set a knowledge point goal for my students, I can very quickly see who has reached that goal. The goal was 50 points. And look, John Adams and Alexander Hamilton, they have met the goal. Jack Handy and student name have not. This is very quick and easy as far as work on the teacher. You can just quickly just check the box on whether or not they have met that goal. Now, what you see when you first get dropped in here is the total points that they've earned. And this is what I want to draw your attention to. You can set weekly or you can set daily goals. So I can go ahead and say, I only want to look at work that's been done this last week. I set the goal, I apply it, and oh no, nobody met my 50-point goal this week. So it looks as though Alexander Hamilton got close with 38 points, all right? And so the students will be able to also have a date field. So their report will look like this, and they'll be able to set and apply a date field for themselves. So John Adams setting and applying that date field can see, oh, I've only earned 22 knowledge points this week. And so he knows that he's not yet completed the number of assignments he needs to meet the goal that was set. And yes, I see some folks are helping out in the chat. There will be a recording of this on the ReadTheory YouTube channel. Thank you. Okay, so going back to the presentation real quick, hopefully you have a sense on how you'll be able to, let's see, and, oh, there's those Legos. All right, so hopefully you have a sense now of how you'll be able to actually use the date field to very quickly track who is meeting those goals. All right, and individual goals and assignments are great. We love them, but we also want to make sure that we know and really emphasize competitions. Competitions are fantastic for creating community. They are just, and I'll talk more about this, the research behind this, but effectively, we're in uncharted waters for creating sense of bond and community within classroom. And so this is a very concrete and simple way that you can get your students engaged with each other and engaged as a class. So the best practices for when you're setting those competitions up is you want to emphasize point-based competitions are the best. All right. So this is who can earn the most points in a week, which class can earn the most points in a week. You could also do it because the information is readily available to you and easy to find on the number of quizzes a student passed. So that can be something that you set up as well. We highly, highly recommend that you set up some sort of tracking chart so that students can see, even when they're not logged in, how the class or they are doing in the competition. And really what it comes down to is knowing what's going to be best for your students. Would a classroom competition work best, or would an inter-class competition work best? There have been concerns with competitions. I know I, as a 5th grade teacher most recently, ran into the issue with my students attempting to cheat in order to win competitions. One of the things that we want you to know is that we're aware of the ways that students try to cheat our program, and we program against it. And so 2 things to keep in mind as far as cheating goes. If a student purposefully does poorly on a quiz, they will be bumped down to a lower ability level. Now, we actually have a security feature in place where students can't go more than 3 levels below their highest achieved level. So what that means is, for one of my students, he got all the way up to a 6th grade level. Even if he tried to do poorly, he could never go below below a 3rd grade passage on our site. Our program would not let him. And if they're trying to go ahead and get a perfect score, get those bonus points, well, as soon as they get a perfect score, or they're going to be bumped up to the next ability level. And so there isn't a really, really good way to effectively cheat our system. Another way I've handled it, and this is point number 2, is that I said my expectation for the class. So for that 5th grade class, it was a low socioeconomic school with lots of varying ability levels. And so I just said, I won't accept quizzes if your quiz average is below 3rd grade. And for a 5th grade class, that was a struggle for some, but also a motivator for them. And that allowed me to see students who were not trying their best and make sure that they weren't the winners of the competition. As far as like setting a floor goes, that would just be, it's data that's readily available. You can see their average on, and I can show this to you a little bit. You can see their average on the progress report page. So you can see people whose quiz average is lower than it should be. All right. So now I want to take a sec and just show you some amazing ways that folks have run and managed competitions in their classes previously. These are all things that have been shared with us on Twitter or that we have found when people have added us. So I just want to run through a few of these. So right here, we see a hallway display where they did a bracket tournament style inter-classroom competition. At the end of each week, whichever class had the most had the most points, they went on to the next round. And so that was really motivating for these students. Here you can see, and I love this one because this is sort of shows you what's possible with the individual charts. Each one of these numbers here represents a student. And so in a traditional classroom, if you have this ability, and I'm sure you can adapt this to a digital environment, as a student upgraded from the beginning level, the luminary level, they would actually go and physically move their token up to the next ability level. And so they got to take a break outside of the program to go show and really experience that progress and moving up. So I love that example. Right here, this is a very low-tech spreadsheet. So it does, if creativity is not your strong suit, this was a low-tech way that this teacher just kept a quick little track on which class had the most points. And they kept that going for over a month. And then the winner got a Krispy Kreme party, which is donuts if you're not from the United States and don't know what Krispy Kremes are. And then if creativity is your strong suit, I will go ahead and say that this was, all students had their own animal avatar. They got to climb the tree as they earned additional points. This teacher did amazing things. And even if you are online, even if you're teaching, having something like this at home, having something like this, I know it is geared towards more younger students, but having something like this where you can, as part of class, move people up the tree is going to help create that sense of community, accomplishment, and engagement. So why competitions are so important is they help create this sense of community, which is it's going to be significantly harder to do in this new environment. And so the latest research shows that if you can create a sense of community, you're going to create students who are more academically motivated. You're going to teach them to act ethically, and that you're going to teach them how to be good people and be good to each other. And so focus on that social and emotional learning is really crucial. And so that's one of the reasons we're emphasizing this so much. I've seen a lot of questions so far about, well, this is great for younger students, but what about older students? And I think setting up competition, setting up goals is probably the best way to go for older students rather than direct competition, but including it in there, including a common goal rather than a competition can be motivating. Everybody's doing their part. Everybody's attempting to work towards some larger goal. All right. So moving on, I'm going to switch gears here. And I actually just want to real quick just show you, let's see. I want to go ahead and now switch gears and show you the quiz history. Now, this is going to be great for all ability levels. So I want to make sure that you know how to access it and what it can do. And so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you again. Great. Now, the quiz history is available on the progress report once you have selected an individual student. So I'm going to select John Adams. Now, John Adams is only reading at the first grade level, but that's okay. I can still look through his quiz history and try to get a sense of how he's actually doing on individual questions to see if there's anything he's struggling with. So as I look at his quiz history here, I'm able to look at not just what he's reading, but what he selected as the answer for each question that was provided to him. So, and this, I'm going to show you different ways and talk about different ways that you can utilize this, but this allows you to see what your students are doing and whether or not you can determine any patterns on issues that they are having, okay? All right, so I'm going to head back to the presentation real quick, but just to review one more time, the way you get to the quiz history is you go to the progress report, you select the student, and then way down at the bottom, you can see their quiz history. Any of the quiz titles that are in blue are able to be accessed by the teachers. Teachers have access to the full quiz history. Students only have access to the most recent 3 quizzes that they've been working on. Okay. All right. So back to the presentation to talk more about how you can use that quiz history. So one of the things I love to do for especially my higher level students is they use ReadTheory, but they also have a notebook alongside ReadTheory. And what they do here is they have to prove their answer. For each question, before they submit their answer, they need to have proof. This is a great skill. Annotation is something that I know teachers are sorely missing when we move to digital environments. This is a great low-tech way to make sure that students are actually taking their time and finding the answers. And so with the quiz history, they can, number one, as they're taking the quiz, they have to stop and prove their answer and say what evidence supports their answer before they submit their answer. And what this does is it gives you something to actually have when you're in an individual meeting with them, a breakout session, and you can go back and look through their quiz history and look at their proven answer and see where the disconnect was for any incorrect answers. Our site also provides the answer explanation, so you can make it part of the assignment where they could actually correct their proven answer and talk about why they did or did not get that correct. And so I like to think about that, the quiz history, along with them filling out a prove your answer sheet or some sort of supplementary assignment like that. It gives you insight into the student's thinking and any stumbling blocks that they may have hit while reading the passage. And then the other big thing that I love the quiz history for is for these individual meeting times. It allows you to do that item by item review. It allows you to see areas and types of questions that students are struggling on, but it also can be an opportunity for fluency practice. Think of each one of these already taken quizzes as a leveled reading text. And so if you have the opportunity to be in a one-on-one breakout session with a student, you've already got a text that is just right for their level that you didn't have to do anything to select. is just right for them to practice their fluency skills. Now, this can be an issue for younger students as you want to build up fluency competency, but it can also help you with older students and seeing where any knowledge gaps may have appeared. So things like, oh, this person doesn't understand this particular digraph. We need to work on this together. All right. So the last thing that I want to do here is I want to talk to you about using the additional information, the Lexile levels that appear to help find additional resources. So I'm going to briefly talk through these 2 points, and then I will show you what I'm actually talking about. So for whole class, you can use the Lexile information generated by ReadTheory to make curriculum decisions. When I was a 9th grade teacher at a Title I school, I had most of my students reading at a 5th grade reading level. And so that informed the type of texts that I would assign. Having that whole class data was really important and really vital for me to be able to make those decisions. All right. And then the other thing is at the individual level, this allows you to inform the differentiation in breakout sessions that you want to do, or to locate additional content for them. This can be supplemental resources, remediation. And along these lines is I just want to point out, just a shout out to the makers of Lexile, the Lexile framework. They have this fantastic Find a Book tool. With Find a Book tool, they can go ahead and just type in their Lexile level. You can do this for them, or they can do it. You can select interests, and you can find additional resources and books that are just right for them, that hopefully you can make available either through library lending programs with your school or their local library. So I just want to take you real quick into and show you where you can find that Lexile information, both on the whole class and individual level. All right, so great. So on the progress report here for the whole class, you can see the class's average, and this can help you get a sense of where students are ability-wise. So I can see on average, the texts that my students have been reading have been at the 207 Lexile level. Now I can break it down by student and see that John Adams, his average Lexile level that he's been seeing is actually 134. So John's a little lower than the class average. This is easy to see there, and you can also see it on the main page. So you can see where students were on their pretest and where they are in their program average just by hovering over. This can help you quickly make groups if you see that 2 students or 5 students are all roughly the same ability level. Okay. Let's go ahead. Thank you. As we work through here. Great. And I will be sharing that Find a Book tool link and the link to all of our additional information on the YouTube channel when we post this video. Okay, let's see, where are we? Moving right along. All right, so those were the main items that I wanted to cover with you all today. So let's go over our learning goal. Hopefully you've found at least one new way to utilize ReadTheory in a way that will match up with your classroom, whether it is using it to provide differentiated reading instruction, knowing a student's level, setting up classroom competitions, or setting up effective goals for your students. So hopefully you found something today that is going to help you be really effective and create that sense of community within your classroom. And now we come to the second learning goal is feeling comfortable, having all of your questions answered. So what I'm going to go do now is I'm going to switch us over into the Q&A mode, and I'm going to go back through and see which questions are relevant to a whole class thing and which haven't been covered by the chat. And hopefully I'll be able to provide some clarity there. All right, so switching over to Q&A mode. Great. So let me Q&A mode here. So the first question that was asked was, will we get a recording of this session? It will be posted to our YouTube channel, which go to YouTube and type in Read Theory, and you will be able to find our channel. All right. I see here, is there a way of seeing when students last logged on as a class instead of having to log into each student at a time? So what you can do is you can use the date field in a narrow way. So what this person is asking is, I want to know if any of my students logged in yesterday. How do I do that? So let me go ahead and show you. So for all you would do is, if you want to know if a student logged in today, you go to your whole class progress report, you set a begin and end date of the same date, and you can see, boom, only John Adams and Alexander Hamilton logged in. I'm sorry, Jack Handy and student name have really not been participating. But I know just from that is the work that was completed on that one day. So hopefully you can use that as a way to quickly check in for engagement on a given day. All right, back to Q&A. Great question. Is there any way to track how long a student was on the site? This isn't a feature that we have currently available, but we are looking into adding some additional features in a premium option of Read Theory later on in this year. Read Theory, as you see it demonstrated here, will not change. We are not going to make any fundamental changes to our free service that we have been offering for years and years and years. This is not a gotcha. I know I felt personally burned by News ELA when they began restricting so much of their content behind a paywall. But this is one of the features that we've been asked for and has been tricky to implement, and that we're going to put into our premium option later. Let's see. I'm concerned that my senior grade 12 students may not want to engage in a reading program that they'll consider a very junior activity. So what is nice is that our passages are appropriate for grades 1 through 12. After about the 3rd grade, we really focused on creating high interest content that is a lot more complex than See Jane Run. Even at the 3rd grade reading level, there are ways to keep things high interest. And so even with my 9th grade, and I taught 12th grade students as well when we used Read Theory, even if they weren't reading the 12th grade texts, they were still finding material that they didn't feel was too juvenile for them. That said, if they are reading at the 12th grade level, they are going to see high quality, high level materials that are challenging at that level. And if you doubt me, I challenge you to create a student account and see if you can get your program average up to 12th grade. It is tough stuff we're asking kids to do. Let's see. So hopefully I've already addressed this one. Some kids rushing through the competitions. So setting the expectation of a floor. This is, again, this is low tech. Just say, hey, if your program average is below the 4th grade, you don't qualify. And that's, again, something you can easily check using the whole class graphs to see where students are. And so that's my best idea. The other thing is that you can use our security feature to your advantage. So what I've actually done for a particularly troublesome student was I logged onto his account and did really well on 3 quizzes in a row. And that meant he could no longer drop down below the level he was at. So he was at the 5th grade. I got him up to the 8th grade. Doesn't matter how he was doing before then. He's stuck at 5th grade as his new floor. And so that was effective just from that one case. That's what I've done. All right. So I see this question. I teach adults. I usually try to give them a goal of how many quizzes to try rather than pass, since they're parents with time constraints. Compare this to knowledge points. I don't have an issue with that. The only issue is that you could conceivably find yourself in a situation where they just really quickly breezed through a few things and didn't pass any of them. Knowledge points holds them more accountable. And so I would emphasize knowledge points rather than number of quizzes passed, but knowledge points earned. All right. What research is this program based on? What a great question. This program was designed in consultation with educational psychologists at the University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill. And so it was based on the prevailing educational research at the time on gamified learning and on discrete, small, goal-oriented reading comprehension sessions. And we've aligned all of our passages and question stems to the Common Core student standards. And so you'll see commonality between the question types that are asked on our program versus the question that you can see on a standardized test anywhere around the world. Can they access ReadTheory on their phones? Yes. End of answer. Absolutely. We have millions of people who only access it on phones. Let's see. Oh, thank you. The date field is super helpful. Please, 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 please use the date field. That was a great question. Can the student have the text read to them? This is another fantastic question. I know this is an issue with people who are looking for accommodations and individual education plans. Right now, we don't make this feature available in-house, but we have a lot of success reported to us from third-party screen reading applications. This is another feature that we're looking to add sometime in the coming year, though. Let me see. I have a student, oh, this is a good one. I have a student who cheated by keeping a record of the answers so they knew when the story came back around. How do you defend against this? Well, we defend against this in two ways. Number one, as a student passes a quiz, it's gone. It disappears from their rotation. And the other way that we defend against this is by having a large volume of passages available to students. And so we can't guard against the ingenuity of every single cheating student, but by having the quizzes drop from their bank as soon as they pass them, and by having so many, it makes it a little harder on them to cheat. They have to be a very organized cheating student. All right. I had somebody say, how do you set a floor? And this question came up a few times. This is just just an out loud expectation. These are the rules for the competition. This isn't any formal thing on our program. Great question. Let's see. Oh, this person's just sharing that they found that their middle schools were highly motivated towards snacks or some sort of thing. I had somebody else mention that Krispy Kreme, the donuts I mentioned, were a highly motivating factor. So that's wonderful, wonderful. Let's see. Do I have any tips for special education students? And I also had this question about non-English learners or English as a second language learners. The idea that I'd want to focus on there is to please, please, please focus on making sure that progress is more important than the level that they're at. This is just true for any student who is perhaps not where they should be along with their peers. Focus on progress. And that's one of the strengths of making these knowledge point goals and classroom competitions, is that if the goal is 50 points, even if you're only reading at the first grade level, any student that tries hard can make that goal. And any student that tries hard can even win the competition. When I did classroom competitions, one of my English language learners was able to win the classroom competition one week just because they were working hard. Is there a way to remove grade levels? Let me go ahead and show you this right here. This is a great question. On the My Students page, and I'll go ahead and share this with you real quick. It looks like I showed you the presentation instead of sharing my screen. So let's try that one more time. All right. You can check here. This will remove grade and Lexile information. Now, this is limited in what it does, but effectively what it limits your students to be able to see is mostly on their quiz history, and they'll be missing certain graphs on their chart. They will still see that their program average and pretest average is what it is. We're looking into how best to communicate actual data to students while also not discouraging them. But right now, things like this chart right here, the grade level progression, that would be hidden now. The Lexile level progression chart would be hidden. Their mastery of Common Core standards would not. And on their quiz history, the grade level and Lexile information would be hidden. And so we make it so that a student doesn't know that this was a grade 1 text. They may still be able to see that their program average is low, but they won't know that they've been once again assigned a grade 1 text. It's a great question. And it's something that we're continually trying to find a balance on. All right. Back to the Q&A. I saw this question, I think, got answered in the chat, but just want to make sure everybody knows. Is there a way to figure out the student's level when they first log in? Yes. When students first log in, the first thing they do is they're automatically assigned a pretest, and that determines their starting level within the program. The pretest is 8 questions long, takes about 20 minutes to complete, depending on the student, and it must be completed in 1 session. You'll begin seeing data for your students after they complete that pretest plus 1 additional quiz. Our graphs need 2 data points to start charting things. How do I set up classes for online instruction? It's a great question. I would recommend the best way to set up your class for online instruction would be to communicate with your students general instructions that if you're a Google school, they should use the login with Google option or the sign up with Google option. And then any student who creates their own account will then be able to link with you. They'll be able to link with you using the class code. Now, this appears as an option to input in the sign up process. This is also something that at any point while the student is logged in, they can go to the My Teachers page and can link to you. So this is the best way I've found for setting up student accounts. It makes the work on the student, but it also makes it that you'll be able to reset their passwords once they link to you. You'll know their username if they have any questions, but it takes the struggle off of teachers of communicating all of that login information to the students. Let's see. Does the student get timely feedback on his or her incorrect answers? Yes, they get immediate feedback. As soon as you submit an answer, it can't be taken away. No back button will work. They get immediate feedback. That was correct. Or they get a, oop, you struggled on that one. Here's our explanation. The only time that's not true is on the pretest, because our pretest is automatically adapting to try to determine their level and doesn't want to discourage anybody by saying, you got that one wrong too. All right, I see this question. Is this based on the student's grade level? Again, I hope I've answered this, but ReadTheory adapts to the student's grade level. So it doesn't matter what grade they're in, it'll find appropriate passages based on their performance and reading ability. Does ReadTheory have the ability to import a class from Google Classroom? We don't fully link up with Google Classroom, but students can use their Google Classroom IDs, those single sign-on, to sign up for our site. And so it is very quick and easy for students to utilize this, but our data doesn't share with Google Classroom yet. Working on it. All right, I'm trying to make sure. There are some great questions that got asked, but I am trying to prioritize some of them. Let's see. Are all questions in multiple choice format? Yes. Teachers also have the option to activate a written response question. There's one provided for every single quiz if a teacher enables it. We recommend that you, for your own safety and sanity, that you give students the expectation to maybe only answer 1 or 2 a week, because you are the one in charge of marking and grading those. So you don't want to give yourself a situation where you have 500 written response questions to grade at the end of the week. I think I've hit that question. How do you use written response? How do you remove data and start over? This is a great question. So within your teacher account, I'm going to share this. And then unfortunately, I think I am going to have to wrap up because we are just about over time now. But you can always shoot me additional questions at support@readtheory.org. And I will answer those questions. How do you remove data to start over? So you can do this, and I'll share my screen. This is from either the individual or the whole class progress report page. So you're on progress report. I'm on John Adams. John Adams, I want to start you over from the pretest. I think that you haven't been doing your best work. So I'm going to hit reset student progress. This will delete all of his data except for his knowledge points. There's no way to get rid of a student's knowledge points. And we do that because they worked hard for those and we want to make sure that they maintain those. But if you want a student to have a fresh start at the beginning of the school year, reset it. And now John Adams, second president, does not have any data. He'll see the pretest as soon as he logs in again. Okay. These were such wonderful, wonderful questions. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. Again, if you have additional questions, please reach out at support@readtheory.org. So just cycling back here, ReadTheory is 100% free. It adapts automatically to students' ability levels, and it is a great way to create community if you utilize all of the features we've talked about today. Please, 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 before you leave, tell your friends about us. We are a free program. We are a free resource there. That is not going away. That is not changing. So mention us on Facebook. Mention us on Twitter. We're at ReadTheory. If you're on Reddit, post on Reddit about ELA resources. Please get the word out about us so that we're able to continue to offer this amazing resource for free. We rely entirely on teacher feedback in order to get the word about our program out there. We are a dedicated but small group of educators, and we're just trying to help. So please, please, please add us at ReadTheory on Twitter or mention us in Facebook groups. We really appreciate it. If you have any questions, support@readtheory.org. Make sure to check our YouTube channel for the links that I promised you in the YouTube channel would be in the description. We should have this video up in about a week. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. And we have more webinars coming up, so stay tuned, and we hope you'll join us. We have another one on Friday. Thanks, everyone.